The big guy may have been in on it after all. New whistleblower documents, go Janky, claim President Biden was, quote, aware of Hunter Biden's shady business dealings. Oh, I'm sure he was. He also may have been involved, this according to Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, who revealed the whistleblower's claims. In a letter, Grassley also said the FBI has, quote, significant, impactful, and voluminous evidence with respect to potential criminal conduct by Hunter Biden and the president's brother, James Biden. Specifically, documents pertaining to business dealings with China and Ukraine. Grassley is asking what the FBI and DOJ have done on these issues. If Republicans take the majority, could there be a full-fledged investigation? The Man panel is back. Stephen L. Miller, Kevin Walling, Dave Smith. Stephen, when will we reach critical mass in terms of the press honestly covering this issue?
Probably sometime next year when they are dragged kicking and screaming to cover this, because the GOP convenes a committee to look into both this whistleblower plus the FBI investigation and what Joe Biden knew about, which of course he knew. And there's a pretty good chance that's probably going to be an impeachment committee. And anyone kind of rolling their eyes at that, well, you impeached the last guy over a phone call, and this is probably going to be the response to doing just that.
I actually don't want to see an impeachment, Kevin. I think that it is a grand distraction. I don't think they should have done it with Trump. But I do think if the president was involved in any way at any point, yeah, that this absolutely deserves scrutiny from the FBI and DOJ. And if they're ignoring it, they're compromised.
Well, Kennedy, accusations like this from Chuck Grassley, who makes Joe Biden look like a spring chicken. I think he's got a decade on the president and is running for another term.
Oh, whip your ass
89 years old. God love him. God love him. The people of Iowa, go for it. But listen, he's got to put up or shut up. You can't make these kind of accusations if there's voluminous legal documents that he has seen. Where are they? Show us one, Senator Grassley. Don't just go out there and say in a letter that he has seen these documents without any kind of proof. These are serious charges against the sitting president of the United States. And to say these things publicly without an ounce of evidence is problematic.
So let's say they learned something from the PP dossier. Yeah. I've seen all of this, and I've seen things. Okay, so yes.
Now, is that Joe Biden or is that Chuck Grassley?
That's actually Adam Schiff. You can see his giant lollipop head sort of bouncing back and forth. But that's what Adam Schiff did, and you didn't have a problem with it back then. But maybe they learned that they put out the contents of the PP dossier, which were roundly shown to be complete garbage.
BuzzFeed put that out. We didn't put that. Democrats didn't put that out.
Yeah, you did. You paid for it. And then you tried to use BuzzFeed as a source. Do we really have to revisit all of that chicanery? The point is, I don't blame you for wanting transparency. I do as well. I just want you to be as angry and as motivated if, in fact, these whistleblower documents show that Joe Biden was involved.
I mean, I'm happy to share that anger, but let's see the proof. The proof is in the pudding for this 89-year-old.
Yeah, okay. Well, what do you think of the president's potential involvement here? What sort of ratio would you give it? What odds would you give the president being involved?
It was China, so there's probably a G tape.
Okay, so a GP tape. All right, so Dave. If knowing about it is the lower end of the threshold and being involved in getting enriched is the higher end of the threshold, where do you think President Biden sets in the spectrum?
Well, knowing about it, I think there's almost no chance that that's not the case. I mean, how could any of us imagine that a conversation never came up? He knew his son was on these boards, and believe he had very deep dealings in Ukraine. He was Obama's point man on Ukraine as they were overthrowing the democratically elected government there back in 2014. I doubt he never talked to his son about being on the board of the energy company that was in bed with the previous government, who was clearly trying to buy off the new government government by going directly to the source, which was the United States of America. I just want to make one point here that I think is very interesting. We know now that Hunter Biden was being investigated no later than 2018. And the big story in late 2019, 2020, as you alluded to, was Donald Trump being impeached over these demands that he was demanding that Ukraine look into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, which he never got, and then he caved on the weapons deal and gave them weapons anyway. All just a nightmare. But isn't it interesting that none of this leaked through all of that time? You see, the Department of Justice and the FBI can manage to not have these leaks when they don't want to, even when supposed Trump puppet Bob Barr was the head of the Justice Department at the time, right? And none of this leaked. But now all of a sudden it's leaking a lot. So as I floated this out on your show a couple weeks ago, what's really going on here? And my guess is that this is a signal from some very powerful people who do not want Joe Biden to seek re-election, that they've been protecting his son, but they don't have to continue to do it. Now, that is just speculation, but I don't know what else would explain why this story was completely silenced by all the powers that be in the 2020 election. There were no leaks during the early 2020 impeachment of Donald Trump. And now all of a sudden, now that Joe Biden is announcing he's going to seek re-election and all these other Democrats clearly don't want him to, now all of a sudden the signal is being blasted. We don't have to protect you and your son from what it clearly seems to be.
Yeah, we've got the whistleblower, we've got the goods. We can just charge him for lying on a gun application. We can do that.
Yep.
We can charge him for, minor tax evasion and some of these other issues that, he'll never see time. Or we can get you, we can get Uncle Jim, we can get Hunter, and we'll be done with all of you in one fell swoop. I think that that is probably the best theory going in terms of logical consistency. Well, the White House spent a fortune on new booster shots. Hell of a way to distract, but not many people want them. Doctors have reportedly only administered 15 million doses of the latest round of shots. That represents less than 1 in 10 people who are eligible for them. Health officials say that is a slow response. And why is that? A recent Kaiser Family Foundation survey said half of adults have heard little to nothing about the shots, and now the feds are warning of an uptick in COVID cases and variants. Are COVID boosters a lost cause at this point, Stephen?
I think people are just apathetic to it. Once we learned when Fauci and both Biden said that you're not gonna be infected with this if you have the vaccine, and we learned that that was either misinformation or was just a lie, or they just learned that variants adjust, and even if you're vaccinated, you're going to catch COVID. I think people just kind of shrugged like Matt Damon walking into his apartment at the end of The Departed, and they just went, all right, let's go. And we know that this is a disease that it affects, if you're a healthy adult or if you're a young kid or whatever like that, your chances of mild symptoms to no symptoms at all are pretty good. And so I think most people are just like, fine, give me the Rona. Let's give it to me and get it over with.
And, people can make that choice for themselves, because we have all surveyed what has happened since 2020. We have all known people, unfortunately,
unless you're in California,
who have succumbed to, no, you guys were forced through coercion to lockdown. But, Kevin, I have to be honest with you, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution to the virus, which absolutely has changed. I had COVID twice. I got 2 shots. I will not get a booster.
Hey,
it's a good point, Kennedy. Listen, yeah, these variants are spiraling somewhat out of control, and that's what viruses do. They adapt to survive. I got the booster a few weeks ago. It actually knocked me out for a weekend, but hopefully that's spurring my immune system. I got it along with the flu shot, seasonal flu shot.
Yeah,
so I'm ready to lick all the doorknobs in New York with you. But listen, hopefully with the rate of infections that we've
but with door handles too.
Exactly. Hopefully with what we've seen with prior infections, with the level of support that we have in terms of vaccinations, that we are better protected to avoid that hospitalization and death because of that. And I think that's the message we have to get out to Americans, that you will likely still get it. It will likely come back very strong in the winter when we know it happens during the cold and flu season, but that protects us against that really harmful hospitalization and death.
Yes, so that mentality, Dave, is that helpful?
No, I don't think so. And I think Stephen hit the nail on the head. It's the major reason why people are tuning Biden and Fauci out is because they've been wrong about everything. I mean, every single mitigating policy didn't mitigate against the virus. And they blatantly, you could say, look, if it's not a lie, then it's worse than a lie. Like if Dr. Anthony Fauci couldn't have foreseen that variants might be more resistant to the vaccine, that's actually worse than the reality, which seems to be, as one of the Pfizer higher-up people just admitted the other day in front of the European Parliament, that basically they knew they had never tested, and they were just basically saying, in fact, one of the people on the pandemic response team, the lady there, had admitted that she knew from the very beginning that there was no reason that they should be selling this, as you can't possibly transmit the virus, which of course was the justification for all of the mandates and the passports and all the rest of it. And the truth is that, Kevin saying he just got boosted, it's like, okay, well, I've never had a vaccine for COVID, but I've gotten COVID a couple times. I have just as good protection as you do, man. This is all ridiculous. Like, at this point, we basically know, like Stephen said earlier, if you are not somebody with several other major health factors, you already have very, very little chance of being hospitalized or dying from COVID.
Body condoms. All or nothing.
Yeah, there you go. Look, right. It sucks. It sucks that there's this new virus. Life's a little bit riskier than it used to be.
Night is young.
Dave, you and I are going to a cuddle party, and we're going to find out who gets sick.
All right, we're all licking knobs tonight. Stephen, Kevin, and Dave, thank you all so much.
Thanks, Kennedy.
Coming up, Americans paid down billions of dollars in credit card debt during the pandemic. Now, higher costs have borrowers slammed. More debt than ever. Can we dig ourselves out? That's next with Jonathan Hoenig. Hey, Nick. How you doing? Tell you about the time I got in a